All right, I'm back. Same outfit because it is the same day because I cheated a little bit and I finished the book all tonight because, as I said, it got crazy and sad and once it started, there was just no putting it down, which proves it was a really good book and it really made you like love the characters and the whole intertwining plot lines of many different characters was super interesting and like a great format for a book like this, but it was also like incredibly sad. And if you have like a history of with like sexual violence or domestic abuse or anything of the sort, I wouldn't read it unless you know that you're in a place where it won't upset you. But putting that aside, also, even this episode, I should have put trigger warnings before more episodes of these because some of the content in this book is really upsetting. I just went through and changed, as if they're gonna like blow up, but I just went through and changed it so that they no longer are on like can be on children mode, because every time I would post it would be like, can children see this? And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's not inappropriate, but I'm realizing maybe some of the content is a little bit mature for children. But anyway, after that disclaimer that we'll be dealing with some heavy topics, basically we return to Pierre, but this time, instead of being from Ricky's perspective, Ricky isn't there, and it's from Yesenia's perspective in the cafeteria. And Louis starts trying to refuse Pierre his lunch and drag his food out of his hands, and Pierre is very protective over his food. Through Joanne, we learned that that's kind of because he was abandoned as a kid and was found, dumpster diving for food at like a very, very young age, and like has always been protective over food. And this should never be something that's punished, but he has been punished multiple times at the ILLC for like hoarding food under his bed, and he'll be punished by like delaying his meals, which is like obviously super triggering for him. And as has been said by Ricky, that he's like incredibly thin and seems to almost be developing like a limp because he isn't getting enough nutrients, and he's like going through puberty right now. So he's like going through a big growth spurt and like just isn't being fed enough. So anyway, Louis, the other Ricky basically, who is a lot harsher and more into punishment than Ricky. And we later find out that he tried to be a prison guard, but was not allowed to be. So they allowed him to be basically like the prison guard for an institution for children, which is insane to me, but makes sense because Whitney Palm would literally hire anyone as long as they don't expect to be paid well, I feel like. Because literally all that Whitney Palm cares about in this entire book is how much money they're spending on the place and how much money they're getting out of it. But anyway, Louis is trying to grab his food, and, they get into a physical altercation, and Louis stabs him in the chest with a pencil. And then Louis like throws him to the ground, and it is like smashes his head so hard that his jaw breaks and he has to go to the hospital. And this is really, really probably, they don't delve into this in huge detail, but Pierre was attacked by an aide at his last facility and like hit in the head with a wrench so hard that he had to go to the hospital with like a huge gash in his head. So like, and he already has PTSD from that. And that's just one thing that is like holding him back. Like he just like has a lot on his plate that he has to deal with right now from his childhood, and he's still a child, and he gets sent to the asylum as well. And that's where we stop learning about Pierre. Ricky goes and visits him, which is nice and, you know, makes you feel a little bit better, but it definitely isn't like a happy ending for Pierre in any way. Then Teddy, one of our like definite fave characters, is taken to the shower by an aide, and the aide isn't paying attention, and the water is way too hot, and he ends up dying in the hospital later from this incident, from being in the like boiling hot shower for too long. And this is when Yesenia uses some of like the information that she's gathered from Joanne and Jimmy about like protest movements. Joanne especially has like given her photos of disability rights advocates, activists, I think I want to say, protesting, like a man who chained his wheelchair to the entrance of a building and things like that, like and it's really made Yesenia want to like do something and make a difference. And she more and more is talking about how she's gonna like get out of the ILLC and genuinely like make a difference and speak out against this. So she straps herself to a tree out front of the ILLC with a sign that says that the ILLC abuses and murders children. And Joanne joins her, other students join her. Joanne calls people that she knows from organizations, like disability rights organizations, and they come. And the protest leads to changes at the ILLC, but honestly, like nothing even as drastic as after reading the book you want to see. They like hire more aides and a therapist that comes more than once a week, and change the punishment room that apparently like smells like urine and is just like disgusting and like solitary confinement for children. But it's just not enough happens that you feel great at the end of the book. At the end of the book, people do begin, you know, the people that we know and care about that are still at the ILLC kind of distance themselves from it. Joanne is fired, as I said earlier. She like partakes in the protest and calls the organizations and gets the media involved, and Tim is already mad at her for asking him to care about the kids' well-being, or like telling Michelle that. So she's fired, but she has no problem with this. Michelle quits, which is crazy because she seemed like so into her job up until this point. But it's clear that seeing Sherry in the state that she was in at the asylum was like a really eye-opening experience for her. Ricky leaves and is looking for like a driving job where he isn't at the ILLC, even though he's super scared that they're gonna hire somebody that's like meaner and punishes more than he is. And he voices this to Joanne because they're in like a super serious romantic relationship at this point. And one part that's like really nice, and probably the only part that leaves you feeling warm and fuzzy, is that Jimmy is going into the process of becoming Yesenia's foster mother. And they are like, I mean, they like love each other and they have like a very positive relationship. And that's beautiful. And Yesenia is clearly like growing up to be like so strong and resilient, even though she never should have been through anything that she went through. But honestly, like those little things are like the only real like positive moments in this. And I've been trying to do some research on like if this is what state-run facilities like are still like if this is what they can be like to this day. And honestly, like there are some pretty horrific stories out there. So I mean, I think that if you think that you can handle it, people should really read this book because it was incredibly eye-opening. I knew that there was like a lot of injustice going on in institutions like this, but I never knew like to this extent, and it gives you such a such personal stories. And even though these aren't real people, like they're clearly like based on true stories or like things that have happened or things that could happen. And it's like a really impactful story. I like how the author combines POVs of, you know, kids that are in the ILLC and adults that are working there and even people looking from the outside. I wish that Teddy had a happier ending. I just think about Teddy's dad who like couldn't take care of him and like how much like, you know, I think about like Bernard, who was Teddy's roommate and best friend, who like was thinking about how he had to leave the ILLC and live in his mom's apartment, which isn't accessible. And he would never be able to go to school because his nobody in his family can carry him up and down the stairs, and because they can't afford to send him there anymore because his mom needs the money for her diabetes medication. There's like a lot of like loose ends, which I think is honestly just makes the book more like an accurate representation. Like it wouldn't have made sense if they just gave everybody a happy ending, but it's definitely a heavy one. But I enjoyed reading it, and it definitely like broadened my worldview a lot. Anyway, sorry, this particular one was really long. I hope you enjoyed these a little bit and maybe read the book.